Hey, what's up? This is Jake here in Jake's shop. I actually did some other videoing and then I lost a little chip for my camera, so I'm going to redo the first part of this video. But taking a break from my Camaro, I'm actually working on a buddy's Camaro here. I've got a 69 Camaro in my shop. This was the one I did a few months back where I did all the rear quarters to it back there and did all the welding. He had a buddy of his go ahead and do the body work and paint to it. So it's looking really good. It's nice and clean. I'm going to be doing two things to it for him. I'm going to be doing a low sump kit into his brand new fuel tank here, and I'm also going to be doing a chromoly cage. Today I'm just going to kind of do a little video on what I've done here with this fuel tank. So this is a low sump kit. It comes, you know, this is just a Jeg special or whatever, nothing too crazy here. What this allows is all the fuel to go to, the, you know, that's sitting at the bottom of the tank for everything to be drawn rather than a pickup style. He's going to be drag racing this car. It'll be a street driven car, but it will also be a drag racing car. So first of all, this is a brand new tank. If you're going to do this to a used tank, which you can do, you need to completely wash it out. I'm talking soap and water, multiple rinses. You know, if you go to cut and weld on a tank with any sort of fumes in it, it could explode on you. So definitely shy away from that. But this is a brand new tank. I went ahead and cut some holes in it. So what I did ahead of time actually was I set this sump kit where I wanted it in the back of the tank. This tank's upside down. Right now, obviously, so I could work on it, but these go, I want to keep it basically level with the lowest point of the tank, that way it doesn't hang down any lower. This is about the perfect position, so what I ended up doing was just tracing around, and then what you do is, it even says it in the directions, which actually didn't come with this kit, but you basically drill holes. These are 2.5 inch holes, I believe. And it says 5 of them. You know, I didn't go anything too crazy with actually locating the holes, and I just used my hole saw on my drill. After I marked the locations, I gave them a little punch, and then I went ahead and hole sawed those out. So that all that video was the video that is now lost. So after that, what I did is I actually, as I drilled a hole, I went ahead and taped it shut just to minimize so much of the slag and the shavings from getting down inside the tank. There's still going to be plenty of them inside of there, and that's really what the next big step is after you drill these holes, ream them out. You know, be careful of their sharp edges, but take a knife or a reamer and clean them up. I actually used a round file and filed them inside to make sure all the little sharp edges and extra metal wasn't on the inside of the holes. After that, I went ahead and ran my magnet on a pole. Actually, it's a little, I'll go get it. This is just a cheap little extended magnet. And I ran it around in each hole, and I picked up, you know, all the little shavings and went around like that to get the bulk of them out. After that, flip the tank back around and blow it out with air. You know, little teeny shavings in there. Obviously, we'll be hitting a filter. If you're doing this right, you'll be hitting a filter before your fuel pump. A lot of times, that's just to save the pump. You'll have a micron filter there. The other thing that you can do is actually wash the inside of the tank after you've done work like this. And then rinse it out, and that'll also get a lot of the junk out. In this particular tank, you can see it's got the ribs in it. These are where the bands go on each side that hold the tank to the underside of the car. And then there's ribs in here. So this came with a flat flange all the way around the outside, and that's where I'll be tigging around the edge. But before I do that, I needed to set it on there, and I want to form this thing directly to the base of the tank, because this has to be a seal, right? I have to be good enough to TIG this completely tight and make sure it's a complete seal. So I went ahead and relief cut around the edges. I marked them with a pen, and I just took a pair of tin snips, metal shears, and I just snipped the corners. And you can see what I've done there. Just so that I can start to form around where those ribs are at. You know, those ribs are nice. This is still got plenty of structure in it. It's not going to move around. And then when I TIG this on, it'll be really nice. You know, the nice thing about having holes rather than cutting this whole thing out too is that it's going to act as a baffle as well. This tank is a non-baffled tank. Most of them are. You know, you got the fuel sock in there that helps kind of collect the fuel up. But when you're cornering hard and you're racing, you definitely want baffling. This kind of eliminates the need to have too much baffling, but this will actually keep the fuel from sloshing in and out of this pan. You know, this being now, once this is welded on, the lowest part of the tank. So that's, if you cut this whole thing out, there, you know, as you're moving around, there's more of a chance that fuel will just be bouncing out of this. You want to keep that fuel down, and you want to keep that constant draw, supply and return here. So I'm not a TIG welder. I have a TIG, and I kind of know how to use it. So we're going to see how this looks. Went ahead, and after I marked the edges, I went ahead and cleaned everything. I'm going to clean it again, get my greasy hands off there. I'm going to clean this up with a wire wheel, and maybe do some shots of me TIGging this thing. The key to having a good weld, you know, I'm not a welder as far as, I've never been professionally trained, but I've been welding since I was about 10. Mostly wire feed. Wire feed's very forgiving. It's just messy. I love TIG welding, getting better at it over time, but it's definitely something that's still in process. You know, I've seen people do, you know, that weld every day, and they can just lay down dimes, no problem. I can't do that yet, but I'm getting there. I know my welds are strong, and I know they're solid, so it's really all that matters. So anyways, went ahead and marked it out. What I'm going to end up doing, though, is spreading the heat out, kind of like with body work, but I'm going to be tacking it here, and then tacking it here, and tacking it back here, and tacking it back here, and then I'm going to be, you know, using the body hammer to make sure these flanges are really nice and tight along the edge. I did go ahead and clean up the edges of both the tank, anywhere that I'm welding, and the sump itself. I've shown these in other videos, but I really like them. I've used a lot of different types of discs. This is a flapper disc, just on a row lock. This one's whatever, I don't know, Amazon special. These things aren't cheap unless you get them on Amazon. This is a larger one. They make smaller ones as well that are really great. What I like about these is they last a while, and they cool at the same time with all those extra flaps in there. It's constantly cooling as you're moving it along, rather than grinding it. You know, the other thing I end up using a lot, wire wheels. Those work really good to clean metal. And also the row lock on just the regular discs. You know, this is a 60 grit row lock disc. These are very flexible. And I have some other, this is a, you know, the receiver side of the row lock. I actually have some of these that are smaller, and if you put a 60 grit disc on it, the edges will get really flimsy, which allow you to get into little corners. So I just thought that was some good advice. Anytime you're grinding, welding, cutting metal, it's just kind of nice. There's so many ways to do it, and you know, you find out what works best for you. So the welder I'm using is an MT200 ACDC CK Worldwide welder. So it's nothing too special. Gonna use, I don't even know what size rod I'm using right now, but the one thing I am using, which I'm still getting better at, part of the reason I'm having troubles, but is I actually have a stick. This is an adjuster, so this allows me to adjust the voltage on my hand. I'm used to the pedal, but the hand is super handy. For example, if I'm inside that car, when I go to weld the cage in, you know, this is the type of stuff that, you know, people will put the pedal between their legs and try and use it that way. This, for the most part, it's working. I just need more practice with it. So I'm going to go ahead and practice on this tank. You can see I'm using a number 8. Just a standard tip. You know, I'm not using a diffuser and all these other crazy things. Some of these high-end welder guys use all this crazy stuff, and some of that I think is just for gimmicks, because I'm getting great results, you know, obviously in a closed shop without air blowing on it. This actually works great. Okay, so I went ahead and made a couple marks where I wanted this sump to actually sit. Just measured back from the edge, kept it tight here, made a mark on my tape measure. Made sure these two marks are equidistant. Keeps the front of this square to the back of the tank where I want it. Go ahead and see if I can get this sucker tacked into place. Brand new-ish gloves, which are always nice. You know, I like to hold my tungsten out a little bit. That might be farther than some people like to hold it out, but I like it. I went ahead and ground a little edge of the tank here to get a nice good ground, and see how this treats me. Okay, so hopefully you got to see a little bit of that. I did about 487.9er cuts to that, but at least give you an idea what I was doing. It actually took over an hour of screwing around, especially with that TIG, that adjustable hand that I was telling you about, the voltage. It just takes a little bit more practice. I actually think I might try a different one. I kind of need it for when I go to weld this cage in this car, but I wanted to practice with it and I'm still getting used to it. So just use the body hammer a little bit. In that video you were seeing, I was tapping those edges down and also trying to spread that heat out as I was tacking and welding it. Again, just trying to keep everything from warping. I'm not gonna bother videotaping the rest of this because it's pretty straightforward from here. It just needs to be tested. The way I would test something like this is not to use air. You can expand the tank. I would actually just use soapy water. Soapy water also help rinse the inside of the tank in case something got in there. You know, some guys would actually probably purge with argon as they're welding. I didn't see the need to do that, and I don't really have the setup for it right here, right now, so I didn't bother with it. But once you do the soapy water thing, this tank was brand new on the inside. I'm not worried about it at all. At least that's my preference. But after I test it, just fill it up with warm soapy water. Make sure everything's sealed up. Once I do that, I'll just clean the welds up a little bit and then go ahead and shoot some paint on it. It'll be good to go. So on to the next step with this car. I'll probably shoot a video in about a week. I'll probably post another video about a week after this one posts. This is just a quick little fuel sump one. But I'm gonna do the roll cage in this car. It's a chromoly roll cage I'll be putting in it. I've done a few on F-bodies. I have a couple little things on the way that I like to do them. It's really hard to find someone to weld a chromoly cage. So it's one of those things where probably liability goes into play quite a bit, right? Because it's a life safety thing, especially when it comes to racing. Also, the rules and how they're enforced might be different depending on which person you're actually going to run into. So I've got my ways of doing it. It's worked for me. I'm gonna go ahead and hit this car up next. So hey, if you like this video, I'll hit like or subscribe, and I will post another video on that car coming up soon. Thanks.